In 2017, Telma Boinville, a 51-year-old woman, resided in the peaceful Pupukea neighborhood on Hawaii's North Shore. She was wedded to Kevin Emery, and they were parents to an 8-year-old girl, Makana. Telma worked as an educator at a nearby primary school. To earn a bit more cash for her family, she also cleaned apartments in a Hawaiian holiday rental. She had a variety of hobbies, including surfing, jogging, yoga, martial arts, and baking. On a typical Thursday, December 7th, 2017, Telma was on her usual routine. She picked up her daughter, Makana, from Sunset Beach Elementary School and headed to a nearby holiday home on Kiki Road. This house was owned by some of Telma's cleaning business clients. Makana stayed in their Toyota Tacoma truck, engrossed in her movies, while Telma went inside the 2-story house to clean. However, this day was anything but typical. As Telma entered the house, she stumbled upon a shocking scene. A young couple, 23-year-old Stephen Brown and his girlfriend, 20-year-old Hailey Danderand, were in the middle of robbing the house. They had managed to sneak into the house through a window that had been left unlocked. Caught off guard, Telma was overpowered by the couple. They forced her to lie down on the floor and tied her hands together. Then, in a horrifying act of violence, they beat her with a baseball bat and strangled her. After ensuring that Telma was no longer alive, Brown left the house and approached Telma's truck. He coldly told Makana that her mother was no longer alive and ordered her to come with him. The terrified girl was carried by Brown to an upstairs room in the house, with Danderand following closely behind. They taped Makana's mouth shut and tied her to a bedpost. After ensuring that the girl was securely tied, the couple left the house, driving away in Telma's truck. A short while later, a couple of tourists from Australia who were renting the house returned. They walked inside and were met with a horrifying sight: Telma's lifeless body. They heard some movement upstairs and immediately left the house to call 911. The incident was reported around 3:20 in the afternoon. The police responded swiftly to the call. They found Telma's lifeless body tied up and lying in a pool of her own blood. A hammer, knife, and mallet were found next to her body, chilling evidence of the brutal attack. Upstairs, they found Makana, still tied to the bed frame, but thankfully unharmed. Telma's husband, Kevin Emery, was informed about the tragic incident over a phone call. He was not allowed to enter the house due to the ongoing investigation. He rushed to the scene and found his daughter in an ambulance. Makana told the police that a man with green hair had taken her from the truck and into the house. A woman with pink hair had helped him tie her to the bed. The police immediately launched a manhunt for the couple. They were found the next day, hiding in a nearby house. They were arrested and charged with second-degree murder, kidnapping, and burglary. The case gained significant media attention after Garrett McNamara, Kevin's twin brother, posted an emotional video on Facebook.
I have $100,000 cash right now for anybody who can tell me who just tied up my niece and duct taped my niece and killed her mother at Keiki Beach.
In the video, he offered a reward of $100,000 for any information leading to the arrest of the suspects. The 35-second clip quickly went viral. The community was deeply affected by the incident. Telma was a beloved figure in the community, known for her kindness and generosity. Her death left a void that could never be filled. A candlelight vigil was held in her memory, with hundreds of people attending to pay their respects. Her daughter, Makana, was taken in by her father and is currently undergoing therapy to cope with the traumatic incident. Police put out a call to be on the lookout for Telma's truck. That same night, officers nabbed Brown and Danderand when they spotted the truck in a Walmart parking lot at Mililani Town Center. Security cameras from the Mililani Walmart caught Dandurand buying a phone that couldn't be traced. She seemed to believe they could still dodge the swarm of police and onlookers waiting for them outside. She used Telma's bank card to pay for the phone, which she kept in her hoodie's front pocket. When the stolen truck was found in Mililani, cops reported that there were about 75 people there hunting for the culprits too. It was 7 hours after Telma Boinville's body was found when the authorities nabbed the duo suspected of ending her life. They spent the weekend in jail and appeared before a Honolulu County judge on Monday morning, December 11th, 2017. Brown's bail was set at $1 million and Dandurand's was set at $500,000. 23-year-old Stephen Brown was allegedly combative and uncooperative when he was detained, officials stated. He spontaneously uttered, "Just shoot me. I deserve this." 20-year-old Heidi Dandurand made a similar plea to police. "Can you just pull your gun out and shoot me in the head?" she asked. "My life is over after today." The couple was charged with second-degree murder, kidnapping, and burglary. They pleaded not guilty to all charges. The case gained significant media attention, with many expressing their shock and outrage over the brutal crime. Telma's husband, Kevin Emery, was devastated by the loss of his wife. He attended a vigil held in her memory and made a heartfelt plea for justice. "I forgive you," he said, addressing his wife's killers, "but you must face the consequences of your actions." The case, however, took an unexpected turn. For reasons that remain unclear, the trial was delayed.
The trial for the two suspects charged with the 2017 murder of Telma Boinville has been delayed again.
Many believed that the couple was not guilty, as was initially assumed. The case was deemed cold by some, and it seemed as if justice might not be served. However, more than 5 years after Telma's brutal murder, the court case finally began in 2023. Stephen Brown and Heidi Dandurand were charged with second-degree murder, first-degree burglary, and kidnapping. Brown was the first of the two accused to face a jury in Telma's case. During his trial, Brown, who took the stand in his own defense, had attempted to pin the blame on his girlfriend. The couple smoked marijuana before entering the house. "I thought we were just going to hang out," Brown said. He accused Dandurand, who was armed with a machete, of demanding Telma to lie down so the pair could restrain her by tying her up. "We asked her to lay down," Brown stated during his cross-examination. She was cooperative. Brown testified that he left to go surveil the property and claimed that when he came back to his girlfriend, she had fatally injured Telma. He said that Telma was unharmed and perfectly fine when he momentarily left the property. However, during closing statements, Deputy Prosecutor Scott Bell said Brown was the only defendant with the physical capacity to restrain Telma. According to the medical examiner, Telma Boinville had wounds caused by a blunt object and sharp force injuries to her head and sustained 31 injuries to her body. His defense attorney, William Bagasol, questioned the state DNA expert.
The lack of evidence disputes the prosecutor's theory that he was the chopper. He was the one using the machete.
The 12-person jury deliberated for less than half a day and determined that 28-year-old Stephen Brown is guilty on all 4 counts. On Friday, January 20th, 2023, Stephen Brown was found guilty of taking Telma's life, 2 counts of kidnapping, and 1 count of burglary. Brown showed no emotion and stared straight ahead as the verdict was read by the judge. On January 24th, 2023, a circuit court trial jury determined that it is necessary for Stephen Brown to be subjected to an extended sentence for the protection of the community. That verdict gave Judge Rowena Somerville the option of life without the possibility of parole. Heidi Dandurand has been declared guilty by a jury. Dandurand, who had been held in custody since her arrest, was ordered by the judge to stay behind bars after her conviction. The jury, who had been deliberating since Friday afternoon, reached their unanimous decision on Tuesday morning, or August 1st, at around 10:40 in the morning. Despite the gravity of the situation, Dan Durand remained stoic as the verdict was read, only showing signs of emotion later when she was seen wiping tears from her cheeks. The jury is now tasked with deciding whether Dan Durand should be given an extended sentence of life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. This is the same fate that her ex-boyfriend, Stephen Brown, could face. The jury that convicted Brown found him eligible for the extended sentence. However, the final decision on their sentences will be made by the judge at a later date. The jury dismissed Dan Durand's defense that Brown had coerced her into participating in the crimes. They posed a question to the judge, stating that they had taken into account the defendant's carelessness or lack of caution that led to the situation under the choice of evils doctrine. This doctrine allows a defendant to justify their illegal actions if they were forced to choose between two harmful outcomes. However, the jury did not find this argument convincing in Dan Durand's case. Telma's husband, Kevin Emery, was not present in court during the verdict. However, he took to Instagram to express his gratitude to the community for their unwavering support throughout this ordeal. He also made a solemn promise to his late wife, Telma, vowing to be the best father he could be to their daughter, Makana. In his post, he stated that Dan Durand would face the consequences of her actions, adding, "God sees all." In a surprising twist, Dan Durand's attorney, Barry Sowalo, attempted to withdraw from the case after the verdict. The motion was filed on Monday with the backing of Dan Durand's family. However, Judge Rowena Somerville rejected the request, stating that it would harm Dan Durand's defense and prevent the jury from deciding whether she should receive the extended sentence. The reason for the request was not disclosed. During the trial, Dan Durand took the stand in her own defense, saying she was forced to do what Brown said and that he had abused her. But she later appeared to contradict her own statements in cross-examination, saying she was not forced to stay or put a bag over the victim's head. Born on December 14, 1984, in the city of St. Paul, Minnesota, Heidi Marie Erickson was the beloved daughter of John and Linda Erickson. She was also the sister to her two brothers, Peter and Joel. Heidi was a person of deep faith, having dedicated her life to Jesus Christ from a young age. Her faith was a guiding light in her life, and she was known for her joyful spirit and love for God. Heidi was cherished by her family and had a wide circle of friends who adored her. Her life took a beautiful turn in 2005 when she crossed paths with Nick Firkus at their local church. The two instantly clicked and soon decided to tie the knot. Nick, born on February 25, 1983, is the son of Steve and Julie Firkus. Their love story was a testament to their shared faith and the deep bond they shared. Heidi, a hard-working employee at Securian, a financial services firm, and Nick Firkus, the operations director at a carpet cleaning business, were a couple who were both very close to their parents. However, in 2010, they found themselves in a tough spot. They were on the brink of eviction from their home and were drowning in a sea of credit card debt that amounted to over $15,000. The twist in the tale is that Heidi was completely oblivious to their financial woes. Nick, out of embarrassment, had kept their dire financial situation a secret from everyone. The truth came crashing down on a fateful morning. On April 25, 2010, at around 6:30 a.m., a distressed 25-year-old Heidi dialed 911 from her cell phone. In a frantic voice, she told the operator that someone was trying to break into their home.
State Patrol 911.
Someone's trying to break into my home.
What city are you in? St. Paul?
I'm in St. Paul.
Hang on just a second. What address are you at?
1794.
1794 what?
911, where's your emergency?
State with
1794. Minnehaha Avenue.
Minnehaha. Someone's trying west? Somebody's trying to break in her house.
Her voice was filled with terror, and she was breathing heavily. The call ended abruptly with a loud noise. Just a minute later, another 911 call was made. This time, it was her husband, 27-year-old Nick Firkus. "My wife is shot. Someone broke into our house," Nick screamed into the phone. "I've been shot."
State Patrol 911.
Please, somebody has broken in our house. You shot me.
Okay, are you in St. Paul, sir? Okay, let me get you right in there. Hold on one second. Okay, hold on a sec. Okay, they'll be right with you. Hold on one second with me.
911.
Okay, now this is the one on in St. Paul. Go ahead, sir.
No, sir. No.
Hello?
No.
Can you tell me where you are?
What?
Take a deep breath.
I'm on one.
When officers arrived at the scene, they found Nick with a gunshot wound to his left thigh. He was beside Heidi on the floor. Heidi was lying on the kitchen floor, lifeless. She had been shot in the upper back. The bullet had pierced her heart and lungs, causing her to die almost instantly. Nick was in a state of shock and was taken to the hospital. The police began their investigation. The Firkus home was neat and tidy. The entryway table by the front door was untouched. There were no signs of a struggle or forced entry. Nick told Sergeant Jim Gray of the St. Paul Police Department that he woke up to a strange noise at the front door. He grabbed his shotgun from the closet for protection and woke up his wife. Nick said that they were trying to escape through the back door to their detached garage when a man barged into their home through the front door. Heidi had stopped to grab her wallet from the table next to the front door when the intruder entered. The man was tall, around 6'1" or 6'2", and was wearing a dark hooded sweatshirt with the hood drawn tight around his face. And Nick said that the man grabbed the barrel of his shotgun. They wrestled, and in the struggle, his finger slipped onto the trigger and the gun went off. He said he didn't know if he had hit the intruder or not. The man then fled the scene. The police were skeptical of Nick's story. The crime scene didn't match his account of the events. There were no signs of a struggle or forced entry. The front door was undamaged, and Heidi's wallet was still on the table. Nick's story was further scrutinized when the police discovered that the couple was on the verge of losing their home. They were behind on their mortgage payments and were facing foreclosure. Nick admitted that they were planning to move out that day. They had planned to pack up their belongings and store some of them in the garage. They were going to stay with a friend until they could find a new place to live. Nick said that they had not told anyone about their financial troubles or their impending eviction. He said that they were planning to tell their parents and friends later that day. The police were left with more questions than answers. Was the intruder a figment of Nick's imagination? Was he trying to cover up a tragic accident? Or was there more to the story than what met the eye? The investigation was just beginning. The police started digging deeper into the couple's life. They found out that Heidi was completely unaware of their financial troubles. She was under the impression that they were moving because their landlord was selling the house. She had no idea that they were being evicted. The police also discovered that Heidi was scheduled to work on Monday, April 26th. She had not requested the day off. This was unusual because if they were planning to move out that day, she would have taken the day off. The police also found text messages on Heidi's phone. 3 days before her death, on Thursday, April 22nd, 2010, she had made plans with a friend to get a pedicure on Sunday, April 25th. She was given the option to do it on Sunday or the following Wednesday. She chose Sunday. The police were puzzled. If they were planning to move out that day, why would Heidi make plans to get a pedicure? The pieces of the puzzle were not fitting together. The investigation was far from over. The police also found out that Nick had taken out a $1 million life insurance policy on Heidi just 6 months before her death. The policy was taken out in October 2009, and Nick was the sole beneficiary. The police were suspicious. Why would a young, healthy woman need such a large life insurance policy?
And this is a hard place for us. We foreclosed on our house. Okay, we have to be out by Monday. Tomorrow.
The police also discovered that Nick had a criminal record. He had been convicted of theft in 2004. He had stolen over $7,000 worth of merchandise from his employer, Best Buy. He was sentenced to 90 days in jail and was ordered to pay restitution. The police were now looking at Nick as a possible suspect. They believed that he had a motive to kill his wife. They believed that he killed Heidi to collect the life insurance money to pay off their debts. The investigation was now focused on Nick. Nick Firkus was a name that kept popping up in the investigation, but he was never found. The police had their reasons to suspect him. For one, there were no signs of a forced entry or any missing items from the scene. This was odd, considering Firkus had spun several tales to the investigators during the interviews, none of which added up. The mystery deepened when the police delved into the audio of the 2 calls made. There were no background noises that suggested an intruder or a struggle. This was strange, and it made Firkus look even more suspicious. Then, there was the gun. The only DNA found on it was Firkus's. This was a big red flag. To top it off, several witnesses confirmed that there were no signs of a break-in. This was a lot of evidence pointing towards Firkus. Firkus's lawyers had their own theory. They argued that the intruder was wearing gloves and was in the house for just a few seconds. This, they claimed, was why there was no DNA evidence. Firkus took their advice and hired a defense attorney, Joe Friedberg. Friedberg advised him to stop all contact with the St. Paul Police Department. Nick Firkus, under the guidance of his legal counsel, Joe Friedberg, decided to turn down the investigators' proposal to collaborate with a police sketch artist. Friedberg, aware of the potential for this to be used as a means to further question Firkus, suggested an alternative. I knew they were trying to use this as a way to grill him more, so I said no, we won't do that, but we'll get our own artist, Friedberg shared with ABC News. So, Firkus and Friedberg returned to the St. Paul's Police Department, not empty-handed, but with their own sketch of the supposed intruder. According to Firkus, the man was in his late 30s and was dressed in a hoodie. The police, in turn, made the sketch public through various media outlets, hoping it might lead to some useful tips. The police were not convinced by Firkus's sketch. They believed that he was trying to mislead them. They decided to conduct a polygraph test on Firkus. The results were inconclusive. This did not help Firkus's case. The police were now more suspicious of him than ever. Firkus's lawyers argued that the polygraph test was not reliable. They pointed out that Firkus was under a lot of stress and that could have affected the results. They also argued that the police were biased against Firkus. They claimed that the police were ignoring other potential suspects. One such suspect was Michael Pye. A woman had identified him to the police as a potential match. The police started investigating him immediately. They found out that he had a history of breaking into homes in St. Paul around 6 in the morning. However, Pye was in jail on the day of Heidi's murder. The police cleared him of any involvement in the case. A few months after Heidi's death, Firkus met Rachel Watson. She was a kind and caring woman. She believed that Firkus was the man of her dreams. Rachel was known for her generosity and her ability to maintain positive relationships with everyone around her. Rachel Watson, a Minnesota native like Nick Firkus, was introduced to him through her sister Sarah and brother-in-law David Olson. Sarah and David were close friends with Heidi, Nick's first wife. Sarah even considered herself one of Heidi's best friends. She was the one who vouched for Nick, describing him as a loving and caring husband to Heidi. Sarah and David were supportive when Rachel fell for Nick. They didn't object when the two decided to get married. In August 2012, Rachel and Nick tied the knot. They moved into a house that was bought for them by Nick's parents. A few months later, they welcomed their first child. Despite the cloud of suspicion that hung over Nick, Rachel stood by him, believing in his innocence. Rachel and Nick Firkus were living a seemingly perfect life. They were deeply in love and had 2 beautiful children. Their neighbors often saw them playing with their kids in the yard, laughing and enjoying each other's company. They seemed like the perfect family. However, Rachel started having doubts about Nick's innocence in Heidi's case. Her suspicions were aroused when she found a foreclosure notice for their home due to unpaid property taxes. She couldn't understand why Nick hadn't paid the taxes. He had always been responsible with money. This made her question everything she knew about her husband. Nick and Rachel Firkus had a unique setup. They would send their mortgage payments directly to Nick's parents, while Nick himself would handle the property taxes, paying them straight to the county. Rachel's thoughts suddenly shifted to the tragic end of Heidi. She confessed, "I was in the dark about all this, even though I was living with him." In a chilling tale that unfolded over a decade, Nick Firkus was finally arrested in May 2021, charged with the murder of his first wife, Heidi Firkus.
With knowing that he could do it once, what makes you think he can't do it again?
The case had been a thorn in the side of Sergeant Nicole Sipes of the St. Paul Police Department. The case always bothered me because the circumstances did not seem to fit what happened, Sipes confessed. The story took a turn when Nick's second wife, Rachel, divorced him in 2019. She had been living in fear, suspecting that Nick was hiding something. She even went as far as to send their children away and record their conversations.
Did you fear for your life?
There were times that I did, for sure.
In one such recording, Rachel confronted Nick about his lies, expressing her fear that he could harm her. Rachel's suspicions were further fueled when she discovered that Nick had been served with foreclosure in June 2009, and their house was sold at a sheriff's auction the same month. Eviction proceedings had been filed in February 2010, and an eviction hearing was held on March 8, 2010, which Nick attended alone. The lockout date was originally set for April 9, 2010. Nick requested to move it to April 26th, claiming his grandmother was in hospice. However, investigators found no evidence to support his claim. Rachel's fears and suspicions, coupled with the inconsistencies in Nick's story, led her to share her concerns with Sergeant Sipes.
The fact that you're lying was so easy for you to do in front of me over and over and over makes me think
that I could murder my wife.
That you could lie about something.
That I could murder my wife.
Yes.
She could have also been a victim, Sipes noted. This new information prompted a fresh look at Heidi Firkus's case, leading to Nick's arrest. Rachel's decision to confront Nick and her subsequent divorce was a turning point in the case. She revealed to ABC's 2020 that catching Nick in a similar lie was what made her view the 2010 event in a new light. The fear that had been gnawing at her finally led to the unraveling of a decade-long mystery. In the case of Nick Firkus, which began in February 2022, the defense and prosecution presented contrasting arguments. The defense insisted that Heidi, Nick's wife, was aware of their looming eviction and foreclosure. The prosecution, however, painted a different picture. They claimed that Heidi was kept in the dark by her husband, who was in a state of desperation. The investigation into the couple's correspondence and financial documents found at their residence didn't provide any evidence to support the claim that Heidi was aware of the impending eviction. The complaint against Nick Firkus further emphasized this point. It stated that Nick had not packed a single item, indicating that he had not informed Heidi about their imminent eviction, scheduled for April 26, 2010. Tragically, this was just a day after Heidi was killed. In the investigation of Heidi and Nick Firkus, detectives have thoroughly examined their digital communication. They've sifted through countless text messages and emails, looking for any hint of a looming foreclosure or eviction. But they've come up empty-handed. Not a single message between the couple or their contacts alludes to any such financial trouble or the need to find a new place to live. In fact, the evidence points in the opposite direction. Heidi, in an email to a friend dated March 11, 2010, expressed a desire to move but felt tied down to their current home. This doesn't sound like someone expecting to be evicted. The law firm responsible for the foreclosure and eviction process also had no interaction with Heidi. All their dealings were solely with Nick Firkus. This further supports the theory that Heidi was kept in the dark about their financial situation. To add to this, investigators have interviewed Heidi's family, friends, and colleagues. None of them recall Heidi mentioning anything about an eviction, foreclosure, or needing to find a new place to live or store their belongings. It seems that Nick was the only one aware of their impending financial crisis. In the case of Heidi and Nick Firkus, the prosecution and defense have been at odds over the details of their financial situation. The defense has argued that Heidi was fully aware of their impending eviction and foreclosure. However, the prosecution has painted a different picture, suggesting that Nick kept Heidi in the dark about their financial troubles. The evidence seems to support the prosecution's claim. Investigators have found no indication in the couple's correspondence or financial documents that Heidi was aware of the looming eviction. Nick Firkus was found guilty of murdering his wife Heidi after a grueling 11-day trial. The jury took only 4 hours to reach their verdict on February 10, 2023.
A St. Paul family has some closure tonight. After more than a decade, Nicholas Firkus was found guilty of murdering his wife Heidi inside their St. Paul home back in 2010.
The prosecutors from Ramsey County, assisted by Senior Assistant Hennepin County Attorney Rachel Craker, painted a grim picture of a man who was desperate to maintain his reputation at any cost. According to the prosecution, Firkus had been hiding their financial woes from his wife for years. The shame of impending eviction and the fear of his lies being exposed drove him to commit the unthinkable. Elizabeth Lamon, the Assistant District Attorney of Ramsey County, argued that Firkus didn't just fear losing his house. The real terror for him was the prospect of his wife, friends, and community discovering his deceit. Despite the strong defense put up by Robert Richmond, Firkus's attorney, the jury found him guilty on all charges. Richmond disputed the allegations, but the evidence against Firkus was overwhelming.
Firkus himself insisted he didn't do it.
While I understand the jury's verdict and the sentence you must give, I do maintain and will maintain to my dying breath my innocence of this crime.
Firkus's family, however, firmly believes in his innocence. They declined an interview request from ABC News, but they did release a statement. "Our son has been unjustly convicted. He's in prison for a crime he didn't commit. This isn't just the desperate hope of grieving parents," part of their statement read. On the other hand, the family and friends of Heidi, the victim, finally found some semblance of closure after 13 years. They released a statement expressing their feelings. "The lies we were fed from the day after Heidi's life was tragically cut short, coupled with the pressure to believe them, made it nearly impossible for us to find closure. The shock of what happened to Heidi is just beginning to sink in," they said. In the heart of Minnesota, in the city of St. Paul, Rachel is making a name for herself. She's the proud owner of a thriving cosmetics company, Be Lovely. But she's not just a businesswoman. Rachel is also a passionate advocate for victims of human trafficking. Reports suggest that Be Lovely donates a generous 10% of each sale to organizations that fight against trafficking and other social injustices. It's truly inspiring to see Rachel's success story unfold. Meanwhile, Nick Firkus, the man who caused so much pain and suffering, is serving a life sentence without parole at the Minnesota Correctional Facility in St. Cloud, Minnesota. I want to make a note here that we are dealing with sensitive topics and the death of loved ones. I bring you these cases to shed light on the truth and to pay respect and love to these hurting families. If you guys enjoyed this episode, consider liking and subscribing for more cold cases and true crime by yours truly. Love and respect to those families and loved ones that have been affected by these cases.